Michael Carrick has dared and succeeded in 2 weeks, something that Arteta hasn't in 6 years, beating the Spaniard in the process. I'm going to be explaining what Manchester United's centre-backs did that Arsenal's have never done, how Carrick's Brazilian-style tactic broke Arsenal's defence, I've got evidence, and why Man United owned the space that Arsenal refused to control. So how exactly has Carrick's tactics cracked Manchester United Football Club in just 2 weeks? Well, to understand this, we need to explain the lineups, the tactical strategies of both teams before breaking down the hidden gems amongst these sensational goals in a blockbuster game. Arsenal have conceded 3 goals in a match for the first time in 121 games. 38% of the entirety of the goals that they've conceded at the Emirates this season came in this game from Man United. And this is the first defeat that they've had at the Emirates since May last year. Let's have a look at the game, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to go from, yes, this is the setup, but what are the matchups when it comes to games now? It's often so man-to-man, isn't it? So as I was looking at it, I started to pair different, players up. Saka and Shaw, that was going to be a huge battle in this one. Zubimendi, Fernandes, is Zubimendi going to make those runs? He did on occasion, once or twice, but somewhat timidly, I would say. Has been a bit more aggressive with it at times. Would there be space for Gabriel Jesus to step in here and get on the ball? Or Zubimendi, or of course Odegaard as well? Would he affect the game, or would he just keep popping back? But what we saw was that horseshoe that we see so often when it comes to Arsenal occurring throughout the game. And that allowed for Man United to be really compact during the game. I think the idea, of course, with that horseshoe is that you might stretch the opposition at some point by moving them from one side to the other side quickly, not popping those balls into those central areas. That would lead to openings. There's a moment with that. I'll show you in just a second. So, side to side they went, and often there would be the opportunity for Bukayo Saka to be one-on-one with Luke Shaw, but Luke Shaw did his very best, and time and again went down to the byline, and they were looking to get into these areas here and these areas here specifically to get those balls back and then score goals from open play or from a corner situation, because we know they're sensational at that. So the average positions are so interesting. This is the JLA Tactics board, by the way. If you want to communicate better your ideas when it comes to football, I think you need this. Give it a gander, have a look, links in the description. And the first 25 minutes were a bit of a stalemate. We saw all the things that we thought we were going to see. As I say, the likes of that midfield three, not kind of rotating and playing the ball forwards, but coming backwards, all three of them. That's, sorry, Timber there, but Zubimendi even deeper. And that was a theme throughout. There wasn't that positivity from them. But Man United didn't have it all their own way either. Martinez wanted to play these balls through that we saw in that first game against Man City, and in time that would tell. But initially, you had someone like Zubimendi doing really good scanning, keeping an eye on Bruno Fernandes, and also you had Saliba ready to jump. The game ebbed and flowed. You had Arsenal doing what Arsenal do, moving the ball from side to side. You can't even see Saka in the picture here, but this compactness of Man United remained. One player missing, Luke Shaw, because they're trying to isolate him 1v1, going down. Yes, people, the sides. That's what Arsenal do. Man United getting that frustration as well. Bruno Fernandes stepping from out of here into this area here. It wasn't working, and he didn't need to be doing that. But that's kind of an element of the frustration that they were having in those early passages of play. Ready for some double irony? Yeah, that's right. It's coming. Check this out. This is a pass of Gabriel Jesus dropping off from those centre-backs, getting on the ball. And this actually leads to the goal, because Brian Mbeumo's on his way back. He actually makes his way to try and get back to Gabriel. Gabriel then's able to play around him to Hincapié, who drives forward, and then he crosses the ball over to the other side. Dorgu doesn't deal with it, but then from there, they're able to play the ball back in. Goal from the own goal, right? And this slaps in the face of what we were talking about, because it was a pass into Gabriel Jesus. It's this exact pass here. Look, there it is. And he's, inside the block, creating things. But the problem is this. Double irony coming. Because if we go back to that pass, the pass that gets played in, you could have just played it there. And then someone like Timber, who's having a bit of fun there, right back position, moving forward, could have been played in pretty easily. But instead, it was a bounce pass. That was the attitude that we saw from Arsenal throughout the game. It was negative. It was football by numbers. It was not any kind of real thought going through it. And the equaliser comes from that negative play. And this is a huge part of the tail of the tape when it comes to this one. That Arsenal sideways, but backwards as well. It was just constantly too negative. Gups over here, makes its way back. Constantly too negative, makes his way back. Yes, you're going to suck them out a little bit, but at the same time, that Man United defence was not playing ball. And then it comes back and you're trying to reach in behind to try and get Saka on the ball. Arsenal had 40% of their attacks down that right-hand side, as opposed to Man United, who had 39%, 32%, and then 29% through the middle. That tells a story in itself. Step forward Declan Rice, who's going to be involved in a lot of the analysis here. First up, the first goal for Arsenal, and it's not his fault. For a lot of this, it's not his fault, but it's clever play by Carrick. First of all, Declan Rice looking to get involved. Forward pass, Zubimendi drop in deep because, of course, they want to go round the outside. Now, watch Declan Rice here. He plays that pass. Instead of getting a give and go, a 1-2, if you will. We're going to come back to that in just a second. That's crucial for our Brazilian tactics today. But he could have given the ball back. But were they positive? No. It was the opposite, wasn't it? They were negative. So instead of playing the ball forwards, they play the ball backwards, they make a mistake, and there's your goal. So you got the pass map for Arsenal. I think I've made the point. But then we get to Man United. And Man United were direct, and as you can see, so many forward straight passes into those areas. That showed that positivity. And that's where these average positions look so different now when you look at it with that context. Because with Arsenal constantly going around here, yes, you've got a load of lads in the middle, but no one's ever getting the ball. When it comes to Man United, something's really interesting for me. First of all, this square here, the proximity of the players coming together, but also one man in particular. Martinez was absolutely sensational. And the fact that he's a little bit higher up than Maguire, that tells a story as well. Because the Man United centre-backs were willing to do things that Arsenal just don't do. Saliba doesn't do it as much as you'd like. Teams back off and yeah, he dribbles with the ball, but then inevitably, generally plays it wide, or he'll look to play a ball into this little area here from an underlapping run. And that's fine. That's Arteta's way of doing it. But with Martinez, what was great was that if we go to this one here, what you can see is initially Martinez was getting on the ball, trying to play those passes. What changed was Martinez was braver. He stepped forward just that little bit more. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work, but he kept trying. He kept on the ball. He kept punching those passes through. And he is one of the best in Europe when it comes to centre-backs. We talk about his height and that being a thing. And yeah, I think, look, for the first goal and for some instances, you go, look, if he's 6'4", he's going to win that header or he's not going to get bullied there. But his ability on the ball makes him a huge difference maker for this Man United side. Because that change led to players in close proximity and it got them out of binds. It allowed them to get the ball to Fernandes, but Fernandes to have other players to deal with. And also for them to implement this idea of tilting, of not going away and moving the ball out and moving, recycling. Yes, starting to go, but then coming back into this area because it's an opportunity to take multiple players, Arsenal players obviously in this case, out of the game. And that brings us to our Brazilian tactics, because there were certain elements. It was, you can call it vague and the diehards won't totally like it, but there were decisions that were made that were based around kind of understanding the space in a different way. And it caught Arsenal off guard constantly through the game. Let me just read this out to you. So relationism in football is a tactical paradigm emphasizing fluid, intuitive player connections and close proximity. That's the thing that I really want to get across here. Close proximity, combinations of a rigid, predetermined positioning. Key aspects of it, proximity and overloads. Also, functional groups. An example of 3 or 4 players on one wing. And Man United did that throughout, and that led to the goals, which led to the win. Let's go back to those average positions and work away from there, because as I say, close proximity. Martinez stepping into those areas as well, being really confident. Martinez was absolutely sensational. This is a great example where he gets the ball and Odegaard thinks he's got him where he wants him. He starts to go away, but then he turns back and actually plays the ball up to Dorgu up here. Plays that pass, and then from there, they look to play with each other. They stand still, they have that overload, and that easy ball initially out wide, could have just played that pass out if he wanted to. He doesn't do that. He's happy to go back in there, create that overload, and then move the ball out from there. And this is something that they did throughout the game, and the goals come from it. This is the passing flow of Gabriel, the left-sided centre-back for Arsenal. And as you can see, lots of right-sided movements, mainly passing to Saliba the bulk of the time. Move it on to Martinez. You can see wants to play the ball forwards, wants to play the ball forwards. That's what Carrick is putting into this team. He's asking them to be positive. Yes, sometimes you might lose the ball, but we have the players to play in close proximity. The passing networks scream it as well. You can see Arsenal round and round and round. Then you look at Man United playing in those tight little areas instead of just utilising the space. They're utilising the combinations with each other instead. And the goals come from that man, Martinez. The comfort that he showed in that second half by stepping that little bit further forward. You can see it here. Look how far forward he is as opposed to Maguire. Stepping into that space and making these Arsenal players think, but also the close proximity that Carrick has asked them to do. So now, by moving into that space and being positive, he's able to pass that ball into Bruno Fernandes, and all of a sudden he's able to find him, whereas in the first half, it wasn't happening. A few different occasions in that tight little period of time. Here, there's a moment where, Bruno Fernandes actually loses it, and they have to deal with a break, but they get on with that. And that's the kind of bravery that you kind of want to see, which has been a frustration, I think, when it comes to Arsenal and the way that they're playing. And I want you to keep an eye on Declan Rice here, because this idea of not positional football, everyone knows where everyone is and everyone thinks they know where everyone's going to go. So to get an advantage, you need to try something different. But the starting point comes from positive passes. Dorgu brave enough to get on the ball here. Martinez brave enough to snap it into him, and he absolutely does snap it into him. And then Bruno Fernandes, he stands still to help him. He doesn't run into this channel. He doesn't run away. He stands still. And that, again, is another Brazilian element when it comes to relationism. I've done a whole podcast with Jamie Hamilton. This is from his article, I'm pretty sure. I'll put a link to it in the description. And this is called a Toco e mi voi. I struggle to say it all the time. But I want to read it out to you because it literally means table. The tabella is found wherever relationist football is played. There must always be a teammate available to table with. Yes, in English we call it 1-2. And interestingly, we always talk about those numbers. And this was a game where personality and human exchange was the difference between the coldness of digits. Because when it comes to Arteta and his response were to put on those players that score goals and are that little bit more techie, let's say. But it was within the framework of looking to get XG and high level chances. That will normally work out. That's why Arsenal are top of the league. But today, something else worked out. Declan Rice here. Okay? As he goes to him, he thinks Dorgu's going to go this way. But he doesn't. He plays it back to Bruno Fernandes. And you can see it here by his body weight. His body weight here, he is leaning this way because he thinks Dorgu's going to go this way. But in fact, it goes the other way. That leads to the opportunity that leads to this absolutely stunning Have you ever seen a strike like that? Wallop. Let's see it from this angle. It's absolutely stunning stuff. And so, yes, you've got loads of players around you. Yes, it's low XG, but have a dig, son. Why not have those players in close proximity? Because if you do it with pace and you get into these great areas, like we talk about all the time, zone 14, then you have an opportunity to hurt the opposition. Whereas Arsenal are often looking to get into this premium area here, but they have to go round a lot of the time. And sometimes that's not going to work, and that's going to lead to a lot of frustration for Arsenal fans. Numbers versus human exchange. This is what came from the Arsenal corner, which led to the equaliser. Building out there, numbers. Nothing wrong with that. Shot comes in, it's hoping there's a parry because you've got a million numbers there. And the goal itself, everyone's in the box. It's high XG. There's nothing wrong with it. It's clever, it's effective, and it will probably win them the title. But it wasn't the way that Man United wanted to play. And to go back to those ideas, the ball drops with Seshko, and we'll talk about the subs now. The subs were absolutely fantastic, especially for this goal, because I think there might be moments where you do kind of need to give it up to a guy who's going to hold up the ball and be that really good table. By having that double pivot and having Kobbie Mainoo in and around it, you're able to pick up the ball from there. What's really interesting is the same principles of not just running. So initially, Cunha goes. So I think if you're all guessing here, you go, he goes and goes and goes and runs and runs and runs and runs. No, he doesn't. He offers up himself. He stands still. He comes back. Šeško pushes those two centre-backs that little bit, but close proximity. We've got another player in Kobbie Mainoo right by him. But crucially, because Matheus Cunha has decided to stand still, you've now got 3 against 3 there. And again, let's have a look at Declan Rice. Declan Rice leaning which way? That way. Because he doesn't think that pass is going to be on. He thinks Kobbie Mainoo's got to come out of there. And so that pass into Matheus Cunha is now available. He could have played back to Kobbie Mainoo. Nah, he doesn't decide to do that. He decides to go himself, and it's stunning stuff. But there's still great work from the substitutes. Because once he gets the ball and he turns, Benjamin Šeško does a lovely run across here. And what that does is it helps to retain that space. Ahmad is out wide, but these two centre-backs have to go with him because of that fantastic run. You can see from his body weight here, just on the outskirts of the shot there, and he creates so much space for Matheus Cunha. And because he really commits to that run, it just pins them that little bit. He's worried about him. He's concerned with him. And it creates all this space for Matheus Cunha to run into and to get his shot away. It's an amazing finish, but the space is created by Benjamin Šeško. So it's back-to-back wins against Man City and Arsenal for Michael Carrick. If you want to see my tactical breakdown from that game, where we talk about all the great elements from that victory, click here.